A controversial law banning nearly all abortions is now in effect in Texas. The law, known as SB 8, bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy. That's before many women even know that they're pregnant. The Supreme Court declined to act on a request from pro-abortion rights groups to block it, but opponents of the law are vowing to keep the legal fight going. Ben Tracy reports.
Abortion rights advocates protested outside the Texas state capitol today as clinics began turning away patients. Abortion providers say Texas has essentially outlawed 85% of abortion procedures, which will force many clinics to close. Amy Hagstrom Miller runs 4 clinics providing abortion services and is one of the plaintiffs asking the Supreme Court to intervene.
It's heartbreaking to deny them the care that our staff are fully trained and ready to provide. So really, most people are going to be forced to carry a pregnancy against their will.
The law, signed by Republican Governor Greg Abbott, bans abortion once a so-called fetal heartbeat is detected, usually around 6 weeks. That's before many women even realize they are pregnant. The law appears to contradict the Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade, which guarantees the right to abortion until fetal viability, about 22 weeks. It is also highly unusual because it bars state officials from enforcing the law, but instead allows private citizens to sue doctors, clinic staff, and those helping women get abortions. Anyone who wins a lawsuit is entitled to $10,000. Anti-abortion advocates say even a person driving someone to a clinic should be held responsible.
If he knows and he's taking her there fully aware, that this is illegal to do, then yeah, I think he should be held accountable. This is very much like an accomplice in other types of crimes.
This fall, the U.S. Supreme Court will review Mississippi's ban on abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy. Conservatives now have a 6-3 majority on the court, and that case could overturn Roe v. Wade, which established a right to abortion back in 1973. Lana?
Ben, thank you. For more on this now, I want to bring in Jacqueline Ayers. She's the Vice President of Government Relations and Public Policy at Planned Parenthood. Jacqueline, tell us how many Planned Parenthood clinics that offer abortions are in Texas, and how is this law impacting them and the women that they serve?
Thank you very much. Today really is a dark day in the state of Texas, not just for the 7 million women who are in need of this care, but for all of us who support access to safe and legal abortion. We are particularly holding in our thoughts the patients, the doctors, their support networks. We have Planned Parenthood health centers, well over 40 health centers, and they are no longer, as of today, because this law took effect, able to provide people with their constitutionally protected access to health care. People are going to have to, unfortunately, face very difficult decisions, having to think about things like raising enough money to travel out of state, childcare, their jobs, all because Texas state politicians have put this barrier in place.
Jacqueline, what's the significance of cutting off abortion access after 6 weeks?
I think it's important for everybody to understand that 6 weeks is actually a time when most people don't even realize they are pregnant. The vast majority of abortions in the state of Texas prior to this law were performed, 85 to 90% of them were performed but after 6 weeks. This means that because of this law, people are now going to be forced to stay pregnant longer than they wanted to as they figure out other options. It is, again, a very dark day in the state of Texas. People are very confused. This law is doing what it was meant to, which is to cause confusion. Patients are calling, asking for information about where they can go, what they can do. And I think it's important for everybody to understand these are individuals who have already made the decision of what they want to do with their bodies. And they are being denied that by these politicians in the state of Texas. This is really rolling back 50 years of precedent. That's what Texas state legislature has done with this action. The Fifth Circuit, by not banning this ban, and because the Supreme Court has yet to act, we are all being taken back 50 years.
Jacqueline, I want to ask you about another aspect of this law. As you heard in Ben's reporting, there was an abortion opponent who said that a person who helps to facilitate abortions should hold responsibility similar to an accomplice to a crime. And as part of this law, in fact, there are potential repercussions for people who facilitate abortions. What are your concerns about this aspect of the law?
Yeah, this law is really unprecedented, mean-spirited. It's like nothing we've ever seen before in this country. It doesn't require the state of Texas to enforce it. It actually would allow people to become vigilantes and bounty hunters. You could go out and bring a lawsuit against anyone who you think has aided or abetted in the ability of a person to get access to their care. Who is that? That could mean their doctor. That could absolutely mean their healthcare counselor, their Uber driver, their friend, who is their support network. So it is very far-reaching. These people who are allowed to bring these lawsuits could even be outside of the state of Texas. And really, it's a free-for-all to attack, shame, and stigmatize abortion, and really make sure that people do not feel that they can exercise their constitutional right. The fact that the law would allow someone who brings one of these lawsuits to get $10,000 is really just an attempt to allow frivolous, very expensive lawsuits, and ultimately is an effort to try to roll back Roe v. Wade.
The president agrees with you. In a statement Wednesday, he said in part, quote, "This extreme Texas law blatantly violates the constitutional right established under Roe v. Wade and upheld as precedent for nearly half a century." Your group, the ACLU, and others filed an emergency request asking the Supreme Court to block the law. Where does your legal fight currently stand?
As of midnight last night, the Supreme Court has not taken action on that emergency filing. This was a request of the Supreme Court to intervene after the Fifth Circuit did not allow the case to move forward, not even having a hearing. And so the fact that the Supreme Court has yet to act has meant, unfortunately, this law did go into effect today. Patients had to stop being served today, and now are faced with really very difficult, terrible decisions about having to figure out how they go outside of the state, perhaps have to engage with border checkpoints for immigrants who need access to care, and really has just created confusion among patients. And so we're continuing to push. The Supreme Court, we believe, should act. It is the role of the federal court to uphold the United States Constitution. This has been the law of the land for the last 50 years. And we do not think that the process should be that we can roll back access to a constitutional right without even having a court process. So we do want to see the court act.
One last question for you, Jacqueline. How do you expect the Texas law may impact abortion access in other states?
Unfortunately, in 2021, we actually have seen the highest numbers of anti-reproductive health care, anti-abortion legislation introduced in many, many states. We, in fact, have seen 90 enacted this year. Texas is just the most egregious and the most disturbing, worst law we have seen enacted, but we know that there will be many others if this law is allowed to stand. There will be many states who are hostile to reproductive health care that will try to move their own state bans. We already know that we're seeing this in the state of Mississippi, where they have tried to and have taken to the Supreme Court the question of a 15-week ban. None of these have ever stood before. And that's really what we want to make sure that the court hears, is that people want to have these bans off their bodies. They want the court to act and ultimately uphold 50 years of precedent. And we are encouraging the court to act in this moment, because if not, we are going to see increasingly many, many more states continue to pass these bans. And your constitutional right is going to depend on your zip code in this country. And that just should not be how it is.
Jacqueline Ayers, thank you so much for joining me.